One and all right. Hey, so we're live.
All right.
Tell us who you are, what you do, and then we're gonna go into like a little bit of background on samba. I'm gonna pick your brain about that because it's kind of topical right now. So
Yeah. It's a wild time for it. Yeah. So David Dempsey. I am a sambo instructor at Victorious MMA in Troy, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. I've been involved with samba going back probably about 2000. Really only started teaching here locally. I think it was 2016 thereabout. So I've got a decent team. I've got national and some international medalists. So we've done fairly well the local scene. International still growing, but yeah, I kind of really started getting involved in samba, like really diving into it. Probably 2016, 2017, we started building things out here. With that, so yeah, obviously I'm a coach at the gym. I'm also the president of or vice president or whatever. That's it's an unpaid position with the All American Samba Federation, which is not the official one. It's sort of like the one that actually does stuff, I guess if you want to put it that way. So I'm the Michigan rep. So I'm the vice president of Michigan, and I'm also on the executive board of directors there. So it's a handful of us. I think there's 8 people altogether on that. So we have regional events, local events. We put on clinics and workshops and seminars and stuff like that. That's a fun experience, much more than dealing with the official federation.
yeah.
Besides my samba stuff, so my coaching certificates and all that. I've got a black belt in judo. I got that through USJA, signed by Mark Tripp, who's also here in Michigan, about an hour from me. And I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I teach Jiu-Jitsu too, since it's a Jiu-Jitsu school.
Yeah, I remember Mark Tripp. So
Yeah, he's still around. He's kind of retired now. We did kind of a I'm going away to retire seminar at my place back in December. He's still kind of involved. He's got a school up in Flint. My buddy David Mata teaches up there, and Mark will occasionally sit in on it. But he's just doing his retirement magician thing now, and keeps him busy.
oh, that's good. That's good. So sambo, the sport. There's correct me if I'm wrong. There's two flavors of it.
3
Three.
technically. So yeah, you've got sport samba or samba wrestling, which most people are familiar with. Is kind of like the more established one. And then you have combat samba, which is similar sport, except it includes the addition of punching, kicking, headbutting. There's some ground and pound, and there's some knockout rules and things like that. The action is a little more faster paced. And then there's beach samba, where they wear the white kurtka with a red or a blue belt. They do it in the sand, so there's no mat work in that. The first person to throw wins. So
Oh,
it's pretty fast one. That one's actually growing pretty fast. It's fun. It's sort of like Swaijiao or sumo almost.
that's cool. That sounds. I've never actually seen that. I just learned that today. That's rad.
Yeah, it's one of the top 3 that FIAS has been promoting. It's I don't know if there's really anybody that does that as their primary one, but whenever they have it at like the Pan Ams or at any of the international events, it's always quite popular.
It seems like it would appeal a lot to Brazilians. The whole beach thing.
Yeah. Well, weirdly enough, combat samba is really popular in Brazil. I think it's the
Huh.
biggest version there. A couple of Brazilians won the worlds a few years back. So I mean, that's when you say samba down there, most of them assume combat samba.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so what are the roots of the sport, the style itself?
Okay, so samba became an international sport in the Soviet Union. It was 1938 with Anatoly Harlempev, kind of is the official like founder of it. The two kind of like pioneers who most people would say was there's Vasily Ochepkov, who was a Kodokan Judo black belt. He was a Red Army instructor as well. The basis of his style was largely judo. Then you had Viktor Spiridonov, who was he was the Imperial Army, Russian Imperial Army infantryman, and then he kind of became a Red Army infantry officer. His style, he called his samos. I'm not what he taught and what he did is kind of murky. I mean, the books that he have looks very similar to like Fairbairn Sykes type stuff. The two did not like each other. There's allegations that Spiridonov may have been the one that got Oshepkov sent to the Gulag and eventually executed. Interesting thing with both those two, they say that they're the founders of samba or whatever, but neither of them ever called what they did samba or anything like it. Spiridonov called his system samos, which is a similar acronym. Ochepkov actually called his style freestyle wrestling. This is before like freestyle wrestling had become a thing,
Yeah.
because there was a lot of animosity towards the Japanese with the Russo-Japanese War and all that stuff. And he was eventually convicted of being a Japanese spy, which led to his death.
I didn't even think
But
about that. Yeah, factor that whole
yeah,
thing into it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, well, he grew up in an orphanage in Japan, which is how he got into judo. It was whatever the island was there when after the war that Russia when they ceded control of the island, and with that, he got sent to the Kodokan. I think he was the first Kodokan black belt from Russia in general. And so when he got back there, he was teaching Kodokan Judo, but there were some things out that, and he started kind of working with the Russian army at the time, or the Soviet army at the time, to help them flesh out their hand-to-hand combat program. Whereas Spiridonov was kind of doing the same thing, but with the NKVD and the secret police and all that. And so they butted heads quite frequently.
Yeah, maybe even literally. Then, it's in the rule set.
Yeah, yeah. So they say like Harlan Peff is the one who kind of brought them together. Harlan Peff was a student. He was a direct student of Oshepkov. I'm not sure what the school was they trained at. And he traveled around. He studied various like folk wrestling styles and some other stuff. So, the two pioneers, they never worked together on it. It was Harlan Peff was the one who kind of stylized it. And there's been some regional differences. And I mean, the history of the Soviet Union, when you talk about where all these things happen and who did what, it gets very nebulous. Because it's really what they want you to know versus what was really available. And so there's still things that like pop up all the time. You're looking at it and like, oh yeah, no, like 20, 30 years ago, that would have been called combat samba, but now it's called like just hand-to-hand combat or something like that. There's a few of those around too.
Yeah. That's the one that I'm familiar with, the combat sambo, the fedors, the ones that, fed into MMA.
Yeah. And combat samba, I want to say the first world championship was around 2000. So the sport was primarily under the purview of the military through really the 90s, and then FIAS took control. And there's FIAS is the primary federation, but there's some like one-off ones too, like the World Combat Samba Federation. They're really mostly just active in Russia, where they were like the military clubs and some of the military groups, and they just never went along with FIAS. They have their own system, they have their own rules. There was other groups like Army Hand-to-Hand Combat, Armensky Rukopashny Boy, which it was probably combat samba at some point, but they just didn't go along with it, and they just kept like their own rules and kind of sports organization and became its own thing. Same thing happened on the internal troop side, which is regular Rukopashny Boy. It's now an international sport. The rules are very similar to combat samba, but they wear a gi, so it gets very very kind of quirky as you go out over there.
So the difference between a gi and I've never actually said this word aloud. The
Kurtka, yeah, it just means jacket in Russian. So so the cut's a little bit different. A little bit trimmer in the waist. The skirts are shorter. The sleeves aren't quite as baggy as a judo uniform. It's similar to like a jiu-jitsu gi, but they have epaulets on the shoulders if you see them there. Some brands they wrap all the way through the armpit. Most are just stitched to the top, so you have a grip there. And then since the belt loops through the jacket, they don't tend to come off. Actually, if your belt comes off in a competition, they stop the match and make you retie it.
Oh, cool.
Cool. Yeah, it's not like judo or jiu-jitsu where you can just run around without it.
I've never seen anybody use the grips. Maybe I haven't watched enough sambo, but I always wondered if the little epaulette things were there specifically so you had another handhold.
Yeah, I think the official message was it was designed off of like the Russian military jackets. You had the grips there for their load bearing equipment. But realistically, I mean, there's a bunch of, if you look at like Central Asian and like some of the Caucasus wrestling styles, they wear vests with epaulettes on them and a belt. So it's kind of who's to say. Yeah,
it's cool. It's funky. One more thing to grab onto.
Right. Yeah, you can get your fingers in there and really pull them around.
Do they? Is there any like no gi whatever equivalent for in sambo besides just MMA?
Not really. I mean, the World Combat Samba Federation does some no-gi stuff, but it's like no-gi combat samba. The rules are still basically samba, but they're hitting each other. And I mean, if you look at those matches, compared to like FIAS is very professionalized, like the professional athletes. So it's almost like some of them are almost like backyard wrestling type events where they're like jumping off stuff and hitting each other. Yeah. It's fun, but it's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's come out of Russia in the last 20 years, MMA wise, has been like bananas. I mean, just
yeah, that's. Like it's whatever you want. It's like life's a full contact sport.
Like 4-on-4 MMA fights and like jungle gym things.
Yeah. I've got one. It's called. It's probably a samba derivative again. It's called a Unifight. So it's in Uzbekistan. So we've got some guys going over to Uzbekistan at the end of May to compete in this. So it's almost like biathlon in the Olympics, except you run an obstacle course, you throw a knife, you shoot a gun, and then you jump in the ring and fight. So I got. We're planning on 3 to go to that one.
Leave the gun and the knife out of the ring.
I don't think they're real guns. I think they're probably like an airsoft or some sort of air pistol because you shoot one time at a target, and each individual event is scored. So the overall winner is the winner. So I don't know. It's probably fun. So we're gonna go do it.
That's wild. I mean, the elephant in the room is the bear in the room here is the ongoing special operation in Ukraine.
Yeah. So that whole thing, I'm not sure if you're aware, but FIAS, the governing body for the sport of samba globally, was kind of on track to possibly get samba in the games. They were targeting
Mm,
the Olympic Games in 2028. So they got provisional recognition. I think it was in 2018, and then in 2020, I think it was no, it was 21 because it was delayed because of COVID. They got full recognition, and they're starting talk of inclusion in the game. So we don't know which version they were going to push towards it. I had heard that they were leaning towards combat samba, which would have been interesting. That all said, I think that's all probably dead now. FIAS
yeah.
has not exactly weathered this whole thing real well. If you look at their social media versus like judo, where judo, IJF came out and they did a condemnation. They banned Russian athletes. They talked about how
Yeah.
this is an unacceptable thing. It's unsportsmanlike. FIAS, if you look at their social media, kind of just said that we're canceling all events right now in Russia and Belarus due to the ongoing security situation, and they left it at that.
Security. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's they haven't been doing real well there. So realistically, with everything else, and then they were really pushing the whole samba is a Russian sport versus. I mean,
Mm,
it's not really. I mean, it was developed by the Soviet Union. It's an international coalition of countries.
yeah.
So
Huh.
but they were really pushing that Russian identity of it for the last decade to the point where I don't know if the two are separable at this point. So they may have dug their own grave with that one.
Oh,
I'm
that's
not
sad.
Yeah, it is because I mean I really enjoy the sport, but I think there'll still be some local grassroots stuff, and it does give us an opportunity to kind of experiment with different rules formats, like maybe like team duels or like no-gi, or like just to play around with things because there's really no consequences at this point. But the international development, I think, is probably going to be dead for a while. I The people here probably aren't aware, but with the Olympic boycott back in the 80s, 70s, one or two, they were supposed to present samba to the Olympics back then, but then with the invasion of Afghanistan, the U.S. boycotted and shut
Yep.
the whole thing down. And I mean, that was almost 40 years ago, so it took them that long to recover. FIAS has made a goal since their inception that they wanted to get in the games, and then this probably killed it. I don't really see them recovering anytime soon from this.
I mean, we're so close. It just keeps
Right.
almost happening.
Right, and you got provisional, you got full recognition. The IOC was talking to them. They're starting to get their national federations in line, and then just pull the rug out from under them.
Damn. Damn. Oh well. I mean, yeah, it's a politically complicated situation, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to
It
talk
really
about
is.
this, because I mean, it's associated with Russia, but it's not a Russian sport anymore. It may have
Right,
been like
right.
40 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, in the same token, I mean, it's just as much like a Ukrainian sport, a Belarusian sport, a Bulgarian sport. I mean, any of those countries could really lay claim to it. So
Yeah.
it's very, yeah, unfortunate they decided to tie a strict nationality to it. And you don't see that with other sports. Like you don't see France claiming that they own Greco-Roman wrestling, or like, I mean, everybody knows judo is Japanese, but the Japanese don't claim dominion over it like they're the sole owners of it. So
No.
it's a kind of a complicated situation that they've put themselves in.
There's a lot of that in the martial arts in general, though. There's a nationalistic martial arts, Krav Maga, Israel, etc.
Right, but that doesn't translate real well when you're trying to make it also an international sport that's supposed. I mean, the Olympics are supposed to be for everybody, so you
Yeah,
can't have in one token like, "Oh, this is for everybody," and then be like, "But only if you're really from this country." It just
yeah,
doesn't work out well.
that's it's a shame. I mean, the other thing I wanted to deliver with this podcast, I guess, just getting all that out of the way, is that yeah, I mean, the people that do sambo aren't necessarily the ones that are invading Ukraine. So I mean,
No, not at all. I mean,
I
there's been plenty. I mean, there's plenty of Ukrainian athletes, and some of them, like Ivan Vasilchuk, have been very outspoken about what's going on, and he's taking some flack for it. But
yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, it's not like it's something any of us have control over.
Yeah, yeah, it's a shame. I think it's a good time to put out that PSA that the sport isn't the people. So I mean, there's a line, and there's I can't imagine there's as many Americans that do sambo as there are Russians, but around the world, it's probably the worldwide versus Russia. So I know it's huge, and I just want to see it grow in the U.S. So that's
Yeah,
why.
yeah. I mean, it's got a decent sized footprint in a lot of places. I mean, Western Europe, especially like the Netherlands, it's very large there. It's got a decent sized following in France. I mean, it's starting to grow. I think its biggest growth areas were South America and Africa within the last few years. I mean, it's really been
Huh.
picking up steam. Yeah, it's got an interesting growth trajectory. I mean, especially combat samba. Combat samba, I believe, is the fastest growing version of it for spectators anyway. Because I
Man, that
mean,
would be
people really,
rad if it like took over, like just became like a as ubiquitous in Africa as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like here, that would be.
It would be wild. And I mean, and it's done this. So very much in spite, Fias does not like combat Samba quite as much as they like sports. A lot of them were like, it's run by judo guys. So they're kind of like purists in that sense. And I think that the growth of combat Samba kind of like took them off guard. Do you see it? Like a lot of countries don't even have like combat Samba teams, or like they don't have, like, there'll be no program there, but then all of a sudden like they're putting out all these athletes. It's like where are these guys coming from? They're just training underground. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's just if you've never watched it, and I don't know if you heard that on your end. I was trying to pull up a highlight video, and it blasted the music like right out of the gate. But
Yeah.
I'm going to do that in a second. That's what that was. I'm trying to pull up a video like so that the people that are watching this right now can see it. So give me 1 second. I think and if it blasts your ears off again, I apologize.
I mean, it's nothing I'm not used to. So
So all right, let's open that. Okay, yeah. Ooh, top Sambo moments and autoplay. Damn you, autoplay and YouTube. Okay, so shoot, I don't think you can see my screen with the
I
setup.
can, but
Yeah, but the rest of the world will, and I'll kind of you can look this up on your own. It's from like top Sambo moments to January 2021. So just so that people get at home get a sort of feel for it. So let me click over a couple things. I'm cutting this all out of the audio version of the podcast, by the way, because nobody wants to hear this described. All right, yeah, all right. There we go. Video and yeah, dude, is this playing at 1.5 speed? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. For those of you that are watching this, and it looks like these dudes are just like on crystal meth. It's not. I just watch YouTube videos at like 1.5x because I save time. So, but yeah, these guys are just going at it. There was a guillotine choke. There's throws. That was a slick takedown. Just you can punch him in the head. I won't dwell on this, but you guys can look up this whole thing. And yeah, it's the fact that it sort of has MMA elements, but judo elements. I think is a sweet spot because I mean, MMA is great and all, but when you have those grips, it changes everything.
yeah, especially if you can headbutt.
Oh yeah, the headbutts too. Let's not even. There was that. He definitely had trained in sambo. It was like, oh man, creeping up on 20 years ago. I forgot his name, but the fighter that was his go-to in early MMA out of Russia. It was just headbutts. He would walk in and just headbutt people and just throw headbutts. And damn, I can't remember his name now, but that dude was a monster. He probably
Back when you could do that, yeah. Back in the wild west of MMA.
Yeah, he's probably dead now. But so you're out of Detroit. What's coming up in the U.S. for Sambo?
Yeah, so we've got the Nationals are at the end of this month. They're in Dallas. I think Julian Sanchez is the one hosting this year. So it'll be the USA Samba Nationals, so our FIAS Federation's event. They usually do like their one big one a year. I think Julian's going all out with that, so that'll probably be a decent-sized event. Actually, Texas is kind of getting to be a hot spot for Samba there, because you have Samba, Texas, and then there is Dallas Sambo right in the Dallas area. Austin, You've got Grant Gillum's got a place on the north side. San Antonio's got Nina Kelly's place. Vlad Kolikov just relocated to McAllen, Texas, like 2 months back. So there's a decent showing down there now.
Not so much in Austin, though. I'm looking.
Yeah,
it's
Grant.
Frustrating because.
Yeah, I think Josh Giza he was training there, but he just moved to the Dallas area like last year. But there was a presence there. Isn't Richard? Well, he's not teaching, is he?
Yeah. Our Black Monk from the forums. Yeah, I don't think he's teaching. He's got all kinds of stuff. That dude's busy with things, but yeah, he was teaching out of East Side something or other, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think.
Okay.
But I mean, that's downtown in the, and I'm a little bit more in the burbs. So
I was out in Austin last fall, and that is some serious kind of sprawl just getting across the city.
It is.
The only fast way to get around was a scooter.
Yeah. I mean, that picture of Tobey Maguire on a scooter. That wasn't Tobey Maguire. It was Bilbo. Frodo Baggins. I forgot his name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it is. Those little bird scooters are freaking everywhere, and
I noticed that, and everyone's like, "No, they're fast. It's faster to get around on one of those than a car." I'm like, "You got to be shitting me!" And then I took a
yeah,
cab and saw what they meant.
you just watch somebody go by you. Yeah,
I'm like, "This is yeah." It just seems like the city blew up faster than the infrastructure that could support it.
and it's still going.
See,
It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
we
Yeah,
got the opposite program here. We got infrastructure and a population that can that's too small to support it. So
yeah. That's we should like swap. You know, we should like send some of our guys up there. You know, maybe I'll just move to Detroit. Screw it.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend living in the city itself, but I mean, the suburbs are all right.
I hear the housing's cheap. Uh,
Uh, in the city, yeah. I mean, it's cheaper than Austin. Don't get me wrong, but it's I mean, even here, like a lot of the housing prices have doubled in the last few years. It's honestly kind of scary. My house doubled in price since 2017.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Here is I bought it in 2019, and it's over twice what I paid for it. I'm like,
yeah,
what the hell? So, but then everywhere's going up too. So it's not like I can just sell this off and move.
right.
I don't know, to the country, maybe Alabama. No, thank you. So, oh man. So yeah, and there's a lot of good things going on in Sambo. I really just wanted to have a conversation to talk about that, to get people excited about the sport, to look into it, because I mean, Americans are kind of simplistic when it comes to the idea of foreign things. They either love it and it's like the greatest thing ever, or they're changing the name of French fries to freedom fries or something. So
Right. It- I haven't noticed a lot of it. I've heard from guys in New York that there's a bit of Russian animosity kind of there, but around here, I haven't seen it much. I mean, the calls for people calling about, inquiring about our samba program have fallen off drastically, but people are still coming in. And like with us, we get a lot of crossover. So like, the samba team here, we got about 20 guys on it. Every single one of them also does jujitsu. So it's, we use jujitsu to kind of bring them back and forth, and that's worked out fairly well. Um, One thing I kind of have noticed is people are they're picky. I mean, it's a buyer's market,
yeah.
so they'll be like, "Well, I want samba," but then I want a teacher who only teaches, or a club that only teaches samba exclusively for me on my hours and is right next door. I'm like, well, okay, you can't have it all, but
Yeah, no. For $80 a month. Yeah.
yeah, and I want tournaments by my house all the time. And I mean, the tournament scene is growing. I mean, we just had the AASF board meeting. There's something going on almost every single month as far as that goes. In addition, yeah, we got nationals this month. The Southeast region and the East Coast is very busy with it. The AASF USA Open is May 14th. That's in New Jersey, and like kind of Metro New York area, New Jersey. But there's pretty much something going on every month in different parts of the country, from the East Coast all the way to the West. So I think I'm having my event in August. There's probably something every 2 or 3 weeks going on in the Carolinas.
Wow. Carolinas, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Rothrock, who
Okay.
he's on the AASF board with me. You may have heard him. He's an Army guy too. He is running. He calls it the Southeast Samba Association. It's like a subgroup of AASF, and he works with USA Samba as well. And he's also the head of the North American Combat Jiu-Jitsu Federation, which is it's actually a Ukrainian sport, very similar to combat samba. So he runs that, and he controls access to the international team. So he's pretty much one of those guys. He's always got to be busy. So he's got stuff going like just constantly. So it seems like
Nice.
he's got a tournament every 2 weeks around Greensboro or up in West Virginia.
Yeah. So let's say somebody's like, because we used to get a lot of these questions on the forums, and you see them out there on all over the internet. Is like, if somebody's going to pick a martial art to study for the first, I mean, they're just never done it before in their life. They're reasonably healthy. Why should they choose Sambo over, I don't know, Aikido or even just BJJ?
It's a tricky question. I mean, realistically, the differences between like Sambo and BJJ or Sambo and Judo, it's pretty minute. I mean, we're basically doing the same thing. It's a slightly different training methods, but I mean, a throw is a throw, an armbar is an armbar.
Yeah.
But with BJJ, you do have a lot more access to instructors and training partners and things like that in competitions. But with Sambo, you do have, I mean, if you're reasonably good at it, there is access to the international scene on that, which is, it's different than what you would see with like BJJ or like a karate scene. I mean, it's structured like judo. So if you can qualify and make the national team, and you get funded, and you can go, you can go abroad and compete. Like, So, using some of my guys as an example, just knowing how to work the federation and do fundraising, I've got these guys from like the South Warren, which is kind of like it's not quite ghetto, but it can be kind of ghetto here. They've never really done anything, and we've sent them to like Uzbekistan. They've gone to Russia. They've gone to Ireland just to compete. And a lot of it, they don't have to, they're not paying for it. It's just kind of this whole international experience. And a lot of these countries, I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, they roll out the red carpet for you to make it an international experience. Like if you go to Tashkent, Uzbekistan, you get like they take you all over the place. They treat you like you're a diplomat, and it's
Right.
just it's an interesting experience that you're not necessarily going to get, or I mean, you're going to pay through the ass to get it.
Yeah.
So stuff like that's fun. I mean, culturally, it's still a very open sport. I mean, yes, there's kind of the Russianness of it, but Russian sports culture is actually very kind of positive, and that surprises people when I tell them that. I'm like, no, like they're actually like very friendly and they're very open with it. It's not uncommon at these tournaments to have like Russian coaches coaching guys who aren't theirs, and then telling them, how you can get better and what you can do, or some of like these better Russian athletes. I've seen them like pull guys aside after they beat them and tell them like, oh, this is what you could do, and you can beat me this way. It's it's very like growth friendly. Like they'll savage you in the competition, but like during regular class, or if you ask them their opinions or for advice, like they're very, very welcoming with that.
Yeah, I mean, minus a few outliers, it's usually the combat sports where people just beat the crap out of each other, where the athletes are there's a little more humility when they're not playing up for an audience or something like that, or trying
Yeah,
to hype a
yeah,
fight.
very, very much so. I mean, I think Greg Humphreys has talked about it in his interviews before, but if you're going against them in the competition, they're going to go all out. But if you're just training with them in class, or if you ask them their opinion after the match, something like that, they're going to tell you, they're going to be very friendly about it typically too.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so cool. It's such a shame. And when this whole thing kicked off, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh man, that's going to affect this thing that I like. That I wish I could
It
train in because there isn't anything down here right now.
it is, and the culture of it and the sports culture is really cool. I mean, they're so very welcoming, and it's one of the things that's kind of like the parallel to jujitsu, where it's like there's your team, and then everybody else can go fuck themselves. And like, you're not going to get the same kind of like openness if you walked up and asked one of the coaches from another team, like, "Hey, did you saw my match? Like, how do you think I did, or what can I improve on?" He's not going to tell you, or
Yeah.
he tell you to piss off. But in like samba, they'll it's a very different environment, and different atmosphere. The people are much more welcoming, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Once they get
Jujitsu,
past it and kind of get to know you a bit anyway.
jujitsu is just man. It's so wild to see how it has gone from where it was super obscure late '90s, early
Yeah, I mean,
2000s to
I started in like 99, 2000, and it was pretty niche. Like I want to say,
yeah.
like I started in Flint, Michigan, and pretty much all the guys there were like they just wanted to fight, and it's
Yeah.
changed substantially over like 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, you nowadays, especially here in Austin, you could throw a rock pretty hard and you'll hit a jujitsu school. It's
It's the
nuts.
same here. Yeah, it's more or less the same. I mean, the town our gym's in Troy. I think there's two or three other jujitsu gyms in Troy. There's around Metro Detroit, there's probably 30 plus schools. I mean, they all have black belts running at them too. Like
Yeah,
I our gym, I think we've got three or four. No, we got four black belts now, and then like I'm a brown belt and I teach too. But it's like all the gyms are stacked and they all have competitors. They have fighters. I mean, it's just kind of whatever flavor you want to do.
yeah, yeah. No, I remember in the late '90s, I was stationed in Savannah, Georgia, and I was like, me and a couple dudes were like heard a rumor of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu purple belt in Jacksonville, Florida. So we were like trying to engineer a way to make weekly trips down there to to train, and it's a freaking purple belt. Nowadays is like
Yeah.
fuck you and your purple
Yeah.
belt.
Well, I mean, I was stationed at Fort Bliss. The gym I was at was run by a blue belt. It was like
Yeah.
you take what you can get. I mean, I stumbled into jujitsu initially. It was a jujitsu and samba school, but like they were teaching kung fu. And I was young and dumb. I'm like, I want to do kung fu. I'd been doing karate for a few years,
Yeah.
so I wandered in there and I was just doing kung fu. And they're like, you should do jujitsu too. I'm like, I don't really know what that is. And they kind
Uh,
of pulled me into it, and I've just kind of been doing it ever since.
it's like there's a certain type of person that breaks one way or the other. When they've never heard of it, but they're presented with it. They're horrified. And you're like, oh my god, no, or run screaming, or they're like, oh my god, this is me. This is where I belong. And when it
But I
comes to
think
that
that's
kind of thing,
combat sports in general. It's you kind of either have people like, no, that's not for me, or then you got the people who are just dumb enough like me to keep coming back. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just nothing like it. It's The last 2 years. How did your gym do during COVID? I asked Michael McDonald this, so it's irrelevant. Yeah, to the
So
scenario.
Michigan did we like lightly closed.
Eh,
So we shut down in March, and I want to say we opened again June. I think it was the beginning of June. There were a couple gyms that just never closed in general, and then one
yeah.
of them, like publicly, they put out like a press conference, and they had the news show up that they were opening. I think it was like May 1st, and then after they did that, like students from all the other gyms started quitting and just going over there. It's like, well, they're open, and so
Mm,
we did like a light reopening in June, and it was like we didn't really have like the contact classes. So it was, we'd have limited classes, like, you'll have 6 people in here, you can only come certain days a week, and everything was very distant, and it was a lot of solo drills. We
yeah.
did the Zoom thing for March,
Uh,
April, and May. And I mean, people were tuning in, but I don't think anybody was really paying much attention. Like I'd be in there like on myself, like, all right, we're doing these drills on a ball. And I'd
it's
look up
not.
and everybody's
Uh,
camera's off. I'm like, I mean, if you guys want to
it's
go somewhere else, I don't blame you.
world's worst OnlyFans account, going on
Right,
there.
right. Like, yeah, I'm like, all right, doing drills on a ball and doing planking exercises. Okay, I'm like, yeah, I know nobody likes this, so I'm glad that finally ended. And like, I think we continued that for a few weeks. And the owner Vic's like, I don't want to keep doing this. He's like, this is just making me
Yeah,
miserable.
I know. I mean, as long as you're being responsible and the people that are training there are being responsible, it's a different scenario. We got so much grief for telling people, man, just it's not that you don't you shut down your schools or don't train. It's just that you be responsible and just train with little pods of people and that you can all
Yeah,
trust.
yeah. I mean, we kind of had the core groups, and then there was it kind of continued. I think we like opened again later towards the fall, and then we did have a few COVID incidences, so we would close down for like a week or two at a time.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I never caught it during the time. I didn't finally catch COVID until I was in England this year, like back in
Huh.
January. I caught it. Yeah, it was kind of baffling to me as well. But I mean, I'm triple vaccinated at this point, so when I caught it, I
Yeah.
just thought I had a stuffy nose.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, before the vaccine came out, it's just like, yeah, dude, fucking be careful. But once the
Yeah, very
vaccine came
different
out,
animal.
yeah, just okay, fine, go lick the windows if you got to, but
Yeah,
just
just yeah, no doorknob safe. Like,
some big-ish name BJJ dude referred to me as the guy kind of spearheading the campaign for responsible training. I think that the term what I was called was an autistic lab coat is what I was called, just because I was like, man, be responsible. Fuck, you're not bulletproof, and it's not even about you because you can catch this thing and get over it because you're an athlete, but you're gonna murder somebody's grandma with this thing by breathing on her just walking down the street. So I don't know. I'm still, man. This is gonna linger. I'm gonna be dealing with the bitterness from all the things that I learned about people in the last couple of years.
yeah, I think everybody kind of is. It's just kind of like it's one of those things. It's like social media. It's like I'm better off not knowing all these intimate
Yeah,
details about people. I liked them a lot more when I didn't.
exactly. Oh, holy crap! Just let somebody give them enough rope to hang themselves with, and they'll just post up a storm. I mean, I could have gone my whole life without knowing Gina Carano thought about politics, but
Right. Like, yeah,
fuck.
it's like I don't care what actors think about anything. Like,
Yeah, I know. Just fucking shut up, man. Just be the Star Wars chick and look cool. Uh,
I mean, physically speaking, I mean, she fit the part exactly. I mean, she looked like she was strong and in shape, and she was supposed to be a former paratrooper. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
it
But
was fucking
yeah,
great.
right. As far as casting, when I thought they nailed it versus somebody who's kind of like waifish, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But
Yeah. And we've
yeah,
covered that whole waif washing thing in Hollywood, and they've gotten better about it. I mean, like
yes, they have.
she would have been great representation for legitimately strong women. And then I don't know if you're into sci-fi as much as I am, but on the
Yeah, I'm
Expanse,
kind of a sci-fi
there's
dork. Yeah, I like the
Marine
Expanse.
Gunnery Sergeant
Oh yeah,
Bobby.
Bobby.
Bobby, yeah,
Yeah,
she's a beast, and
yeah. I
she
think she's
looks
like
like she can
six
kick
feet
ass.
tall. Yeah,
Yeah, I think she's done boxing and stuff. I don't know to
yeah.
what extent, but yeah, she's credible. I mean, she's not. Oh God, what was they? They rebooted La Femme Nikita a couple years ago.
And then yeah, who would they put in? Maggie Q. I think she's what 110 pounds.
I
It's
don't
about the
think
same
even
size as my
that.
daughter. Yeah.
I swear I've got sandbags heavier than that woman, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that whole thing that irks me, and not to just derail this conversation completely, and just be a white guy on social media talking about women, but no, it's frustrating that there's so many like legitimate badass women out there that have trained, that understand things and represent themselves well, and then we get the Hollywood
No,
effect.
now that said, as far as casting, did you see Atomic Blonde with
I,
Charlie
I didn't
Theron?
see it. It's been on my list since it came out, but she's like 5'10" though.
Yeah, but the fight they're believable. Like she does not do. I mean, she takes a serious beating, but she's mostly shooting people. But like you're like watching, like, oh man, it's
Shit.
not like she's just kicking their asses. Like she takes a. I think it was more about what kind of a beating she could take while she's fighting these guys. It was good though.
I
I'd
mean,
recommend that one.
that's cool too. I mean, that is also a strength that you don't see a lot of Hollywood movie shows. Like, I mean, not at least since like Rocky, like take
Right.
a beating and get back up and keep going. I mean, that's also like strength. It's not just like John Wick. You're just murdering everybody just outright with a pencil or whatever you
Right.
got. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
We
John
need to
Wick
see that
does
more.
samba, so that ties right back. Yeah.
That is true. That is another thing. I think I had Steve Keffer on like 2 years ago, maybe,
Yep.
and we
Yeah.
talked about stuff.
He was telling me about he was at my place a couple of years back. And he was telling me about it before the movie came out because I think a few of his students were in it, and then the guys who were demonstrating the techniques were the Collier brothers from Collier Brothers Judo.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, if you want to be like the world's top assassin, then train in sambo.
We did get a bump after that. No, none of them stayed, but we got a bump. Like I want to be like John Wick, and they come in and like, oh well, this is really hard. They
Yeah.
bounced, but hey,
Sign them
take
up
what
for
you can
the
get.
Baba Yaga or whatever package.
Yeah,
So
sign them up for the year long John Wick package, and it's cash. So
yeah, I know that's a shame. God, I would not. I mean, even if I like, because I suck at fighting. I do it because I love it, but I'm never gonna be like top rate in
all right,
anything.
you're preaching the choir there. I got a lot of like second and third place medals
Yeah,
myself. So
yeah. But I
I,
mean,
I'm
if I
a
ever
better
had
coach than I'm an athlete.
exactly, if I had a school, I don't know how I would deal with that because I mean, we spent a lot of time on Bullshido back in the early days, hashing out. Well, what's an ethical approach to running a school? I mean, do you have introductory fees? Do you charge people for gis and stuff, or is that exploitive? Or do you sign them up for these long contracts? Because I mean, you got to keep your school going.
Right. And it is tricky. I mean, 'cause, before my current situation, I'm an employee now. I had my own gym in the neighboring town of Southfield where I was teaching. It was just me teaching Samba. I was renting a space out.
Yeah,
And a lot of those things come up. And it's like, I don't want to do this, but it's like, I also got to pay bills. So you start having to kind of tie these things down. I never got to the point where I was like, all right, we're going to have Samba birthday parties or anything like that. But I mean, one of those things like, I get it. I just didn't necessarily want to do it myself. And I mean, the end result was I ended up getting bought out, and now I work for somebody else versus having my own place. But I'm happy
yeah.
with it.
Hey, looks like we got Nazir from the forums. He's local, Austin, and does sambo. He said one of the sambo advisors for I guess that movie's down in the RGV now. I'm drawing a blank on RGV. Nope. No, if you're still with us, man, I don't know what RGV is, but yeah, it's where it isn't weird that you would want to see strong people played by performers that look strong. Okay, Vlad Kulikov.
Vlad Kolakov, yeah,
Yeah.
he's down in he's in McAllen, Texas now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, Vlad's a buddy of mine. He's actually supposed to be out in Michigan next weekend, but the guy who was hosting him, I guess the airfare quadrupled in price, so he had to cancel. But I was talking to Vlad about going down there for my wife and kids are heading to Korea for the summer, so I got like all this time to myself. So I was
Nice.
talking about going down there for like a week or so.
Yeah, Rio Grande Valley. Okay, that's RGV.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I should know Texas better. I grew up here, but damn,
Yeah,
Texas is
actually,
big.
Vlad was in the first John Wick movie. He's the Russian that's holding the bag over John's head and then gets shot in the head.
Ah, okay. So he's
He
not
was
making
also
a sequel appearance.
no, he was also in the movie Salt. He was the Angelina Jolie's father in the flashbacks, the Russian
Oh
wrestler.
crap.
He's been in a couple of movies, yeah.
Ah, yeah. I mean that would. I mean, I can imagine like sambo dudes make great bad guys because I mean they already know how to fall, and
Yeah.
yeah. That's why Steve's made a career out of it.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's doing very well with that. And it's kind of cool he's able to spin that whole thing.
Yeah. So, well, I think we're running out of anywhere to promote more about the sport. So this is a segment we've been doing going forward. So I want to hold on. And of course, the sound effect is not working right now. But just imagine there is a gong going off right now. And so the question is, anyone alive right now, if you could fight them, snap my fingers like Thanos, and you're in a cage with that dude or woman, I don't know, or what? If you could fight any human being alive right now, who would it be?
Any human being alive right now, who would it be?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm probably gonna go with Fedor. I mean, he'll beat the shit out of me, but I mean, it'd be cool to say he did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that approach. That's warrior spirit. That's good stuff. It's like, and it would be over quick. I mean, I don't know how. I
Yeah,
mean, you
I mean,
might hang, but I mean, I know if it was me,
he's got about 60 pounds on me,
I've seen
and
the guy in person.
I
He
mean,
was at
I think I think we're about the same height. I'm like 5'9", 5'10". He's not real tall, but
yeah, yeah.
he's a
No,
solid guy.
I saw he was at M1. I was a judge at M1 when it came to Kansas City like forever ago, and I mean I was about 20 feet away from the guy. Looks like a barrel with arms. He is
Yeah,
just stout. So I wouldn't want to get hit by him, but part of me just
you probably get
would.
hit once. Yeah,
So
just
yeah,
once probably.
it's like fighting Mike Tyson. It's like
Yeah,
I did it. Okay.
yeah, yeah. You always have that one. You could say that happened.
Yeah, exactly. So that's bragging rights. Okay, man. Well, where can people find out more about your school? Anything you want to like promote,
Yeah.
etc.?
So yeah, the school, victoriousmma.com. That'll take you right to there. You can figure out more about the program. Also, plug the All American Samba Federation website is exactly as it sounds. I'm on the board there. We're not the official one, but we do hold events, seminars, and clinics. So if you wanted something set up, if you hit us up through that channel, we are a not-for-profit. We typically do these things for free. Also, another nonprofit I'm involved with, Foxhole. We promote combat sports and like scholarships for training for veterans and military members, all at cost. We fund that. So it's very similar to like a We Defy Foundation, except we're a little more broad in our scope and what we do. Also, try to help out by getting people like junior and pre-military people involved in combat sports before they ship off to their training camps. So yeah, that is foxholeusa.org.
Awesome. Yeah, as somebody that prepares like recruits to get shipped off to their training camps, that's an interesting proposition. But yeah, let's get them in a little bit better
Yeah,
shape.
I mean, I'd say I just came back from one. That was not a good time at 41, but well, you just went to infantry school, last year?
At 46. So
Yeah. Yeah, I went to
yeah,
that whole thing like, oh, it's a gentleman's course, and I got here like, surprise, motherfucker, it's boot camp. Like, son of a bitch. Like, we're in a sand pit now. Like,
yeah. I remember some pain. I'm trying to block it out now. But yeah, get good times, man. Military and just there's a natural overlap between fighting and fighting.
yeah, I mean, it's just that, yeah, it's just grinding through it.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, this has been great. Yeah, I mean, we'll have you back on one of these days if there's like a huge thing going on, and yeah. Oh, shoot, you can't see this, so it's totally lost on you. But I'm wearing my Russian warship "Go fuck yourself" T-shirt.
Nice.
Courtesy.
Classic
Well, not courtesy.
one-liner.
I paid for it, but of Saint Javelin. They're all the proceeds are going to Ukraine for all
Yeah,
the T-shirts and stuff.
that's let me plug one thing. AASF right now, All American Samba Federation. We are also doing fundraising right now for the Ukrainian Samba Federation because a lot of their athletes, of course, were displaced and unfortunately involved in this whole thing.
Yeah, that's a shame. Well, hopefully that they get a heel hook some motherfuckers.
We're trying. Like we got a couple guys on the board are Ukrainian themselves. I got one of my former students ended up kind of stuck there in eastern Ukraine in Kherson. So I've been trying to work with some PMCs to get him out, but it has just been a drag.
Yeah, and any Ukrainian like fighters over there, if you can get us video footage of you pulling a rolling knee bar off in live combat, I will send you like all the Bullshido gear in our closet, like whatever you want, man. I'll make you a legend. So, but all right, hey, this has been great. We're gonna wrap this up and end.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks a lot, Neil.
All right, later, man. Bye.